Good to have you with us, whether you're joining us live or if you're watching us at a later point. So glad that you're able to do this. I've been aware of the Five Wishes booklet for quite some time. It's got a great backstory on how it developed. And the biggest piece with it is it makes such a difference for family and loved ones if we fill out a form like this where people can know if we can't communicate for ourselves when we're in a medical or emergency situation, some kind of crisis, that someone else knows what we want to have done for us medically. I've seen families come together because that document is there. I've seen families tear at each other when there isn't this kind of document. So really glad that you're able to do this. This has nothing to do with filling it out if I'm approaching end of life. I've shared before that I was in a congregation where a young couple with young children was in a car accident. There's just the parents were in the accident. One died, the other was in a coma, and there was nothing like this. So we can never predict when we might need something like this. So encourage you to fill this out and also to let other people know. We do have extra copies of the Five Wish booklet available. So you can contact us and we can make those available to you. And at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Ebony Massey and Lori Carpenter, who are with Trustbridge, which is a hospice organization, and I'll let them explain more, but very grateful that Ebony, you and Lori are able to join us today. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for having us. Just to tell you a little bit about us, Trustbridge provides hospice and palliative care throughout Broward and Palm Beach County. From hospice care to emotional and spiritual support, we are here for families. If you or someone you love has been diagnosed with a serious illness, you can rely on the compassionate professionals of Trustbridge to support you. As our name suggests, you can trust that we will do whatever it is necessary to guide you and your family through that difficult time and provide the loving care you need. You are not alone. We are here to support you as a community resource. My name is Ebony Massey. I am a registered nurse, and I am one of the external educators for Trustbridge Hospice. And I will allow my colleague in arms, Ms. Lori, to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Lori. I am a facility liaison. I've been with Trustbridge for 14 years. It is my passion on and off the clock. My friends and family tease me because I get phone calls from all over the country helping friends and families deal with advanced illnesses. I believe that every single person, no matter what kind of life you've lived, deserves to die with dignity and with comfort. And I believe that with every fiber of my being. And I love what I do. Thanks for letting us be here today.
Great. As mentioned prior, we are going to review the Five Wishes with you today. Our mission is not to overload you with information, but just to hit the highlights for you, answer any questions. You can interject any questions at any time throughout the presentation. As Mr. Kurt said, you either can indicate it through the chat group discussion, or as he said, if you want to verbally ask as well, you can indicate that. Now, the Five Wishes is a document that has many forms. You can download it online. Many healthcare agencies have their version of it. We have our version. As the pastor said, that you can have access to. Some of you already have a copy. It is available in other languages, such as if you need one in English or Spanish or Creole, they are available. There are many things in life that are out of our control, and sometimes end-of-life decisions or end-of-life events is one of those occurrences. The Five Wishes is a unique document that you can express how you want to be treated if you are unable to speak for yourself and you are seriously ill. And now it can address your medical, your personal, your emotional, as well as your spiritual needs and indicate how would you want individuals to execute your desires. Now, some of you may already have a living will, or you may already have power of attorneys or dual power of attorneys in place. If you want to utilize the 5 wishes, you still can. All you need to do is fill it out, sign it and date it, and when you need to notify your healthcare provider or your attorney that you have executed this new document. Now, it is best practice once you've executed any form of new document that you destroy the one that you had prior, okay? Because sometimes in emergent situations, you may find a later version of the form and it may indicate something totally different than the person's current wishes. So it is best practice to destroy them. It is also best practice to provide copies for individuals. If you name whoever your healthcare surrogate is, or if you want to leave a copy with your primary health provider, you can. If you have loved ones who live in assisted living facilities or nursing homes, it's best practice to provide them with a copy of it as well. You don't ever want to get into a situation, now we need to make these decisions and we want to know what your loved ones have wished. No one can put their hands on the document. For instance, I once provided this presentation at Boca Regional. At the hospital, one of the nurses told me, she wasn't worried. She had all of her living will and she had all of her documents in place and they were secure in the safe deposit box. And I asked her, does your family know where the safe deposit box is located? And she said, well, everybody knows I bank with Wells Fargo, which they may, but which Wells Fargo? Is it the one on Boynton Beach Boulevard? Is it the one on Federal Highway? Is it the one on University? So you need to indicate specifically where these items are located, as well as the person may not have access to it. Each banking financial institution has their own process of allowing individuals to have access, to safe deposit boxes. So have you ensured that someone in your family or your friends will be able to have access to it? So those are kind of things that we need to put into place and to remember when we're doing end of life decision planning and making. It is simple to read. Like I said, anyone who's 18 years or older is encouraged to fill one out. So you don't have to be at end of life. You may not have a serious condition or illness at the time. I would recommend that is the best time to make those choices because you're able to think clearly and unbiasedly, and you're able to make an educated decision. You can be married, single, have minor children or adult children. You still can fill out this form, okay? So we're gonna go over wish 1. For those of you who have a booklet with you, you can follow along. But wish 1 talks about identifying the person who you will want to make healthcare decisions for you, especially in the event that you aren't able to speak for yourself or make the decision for yourself. Now, in some documents, you may hear or may see written this person referred to as your healthcare agent. It just means the person that you've identified. Sometimes people just like to use colorful medical language, but that's what it means. It just means the person that you have identified. Now, identifying this person gives them the right to give consent or refuse treatment for you. They can arrange admissions to hospitals or long-term care or rehabilitation settings like your assisted livings or your nursing homes. That person can apply for Medicaid or other insurance benefits for you. In wish 1, you can give as much or little authority to that person that you want. You just have to make sure that you're comfortable with it. It is best practice to select a second and third choice as well. Another little colorful story I like to tell is in my previous work experience, I had the pleasure of being an assistant director of nursing and an interim director of nursing for a long-term care facility. And we had a resident who was not doing very well. And we were at that time now where we need to make some end of life decisions. She had indicated on her form who her healthcare surrogate would be. And we made several attempts to reach out to this lady. She used to come and visit often. And then unfortunately, we found out that she had actually passed away a month prior. And we had no idea. So now we're kind of stuck in limbo because she had not indicated a second or a third individual now to speak for her. And so we had to go through the social services process of getting her established a guardian who would now will be able to make those unbiased decisions for her. Would have they made the decisions that she would have liked? You know, we just hope that they would have, based upon their own personal and professional experience. But I'm sure she would have liked to identify who that second and third person was, but she never indicated on that form. It's also best practice to indicate a second or third person if you have adult children that travel frequently. You know, your son may be out of the country, or if you have your healthcare surrogate is someone who's in the armed forces, you know, they could be deployed away and could be unreachable for an extended period of time. So you want someone who's local that'll be there and present to be able to assist you through any form of transition that you need. It's also best practice that that person they recommend is 21 years or older. Now, there are some very mature 18-year-olds, you know, so if you only have someone who's 18 or 19 or 20 who you feel comfortable with operating in that position, you know, that's okay. But they do suggest that the person is 21 years or older. They also recommend that it is not a healthcare provider, you know, that you can't, you know, that you don't name like your physician or your nurse practitioner or your physician assistant as that individual as well. They also recommend that it's not someone employed by you as a healthcare provider. You know, oftentimes we have private duty aides or we have home health aides who we hire to assist us in our homes. You know, it's best practice that it's not that individual as well. Also, they recommend that you do not select someone who's already proxy to 10 or more individuals. You know, sometimes you have individuals in the community that it is almost like a business for them, where they will be your legal guardian at the end of life. You know, but if they have 10 or more individuals who they're already performing that task for, it is recommended not to select them. Again, if you're selecting someone, it is best practice to notify them, you know, and I have personal experience with that. Being in the ICU waiting room with my great aunt, and the physician wanted to come in and discuss some decision making, and they called my name. And here I am in a room with her children, you know, her sister, which is my grandmother. And I'm like, why are you asking for me? You know, lo and behold, she had listed me on her documents as a healthcare surrogate, and I had no clue. And, you know, I felt that I was not the appropriate one to make those decisions for her because she had individuals who were closer to her in her family, such as her children and her siblings, but she selected me because I'm a healthcare worker, you know. So talk it over with that individual because it is a huge responsibility. Make sure that they are in agreement. Make sure that you clearly state to them your desires and your wishes and tell them why you selected them so they will understand the importance of this task or this job. Also, when you select this person, make sure you indicate as much contact information as you can. You know, try to use legal names. I know sometimes in families we may have nicknames or we have shortened names. Like my dad's first name is James, but a lot of people call him Jim. You know, make sure that you put their legal name down. If you have a telephone number, an address, even an email address, if you have that, put as much contact information down on the document as you can. If any of that information changes, please update it on your form as well. You know, so they're not reaching out and trying to dial a contact number that's no longer in service or no longer in use. Now that kind of wraps up wish one. Is there any questions about that, about selecting someone who's going to make decisions for you when you are able to?
I'm gonna just interject a couple of things if you don't mind, Ebony.
No problem.
You know, very often the most logical person, the first person that comes to mind is our spouse, and it is not always the best practice to pick your spouse. Exactly. I know a couple, they're since divorced, but at the time they were married, she absolutely was adamant that she was not going to pick her husband because she didn't want any unnatural life extension, and she did not feel like her husband was capable of making that choice because there is an opportunity sometimes to make hard choices. So it's very important that you pick somebody that will truly have the emotional constitution to be able to go forward with your wishes. Also, common question, when does that power come into play? It is not after you're gone. It is not once you've written it down, you've turned your authority over to the person you've designated as your healthcare surrogate. It is when you have been deemed, and there's two terms. There's capacity and competency. Capacity is a medical decision that is made by a doctor. When you lack the capacity to make your own healthcare decisions, that is when your healthcare surrogate takes over. Competency is a legal distinction, and it refers to finances. When it comes to healthcare decisions, we're talking about capacity, and a doctor has the authority to make that call. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Lori. Any questions about wish one? I'll move on to wish two. Now, wish two talks about the kind of medical treatments you would like or you would not like. Now, in our version of the document, it is easy that we have the ability to just cross things out. Now, some of the 5 wishes that I've seen that you're able to download online, they have spaces for you to free text and fill that part in. Sometimes that can be a little bit more difficult. And some have where you can actually circle. They're like bubbles and where you can circle. But ours is one of the easier versions where you can cross out, you know, the items that you don't want. Now, under wish 2, this wish provides instructions on issues such as pain management, food and fluid, as well as additional life support issues. For example, you can go into detail if you would like a PEG tube or not. If you have sustained severe or permanent brain damage, what would you like to happen? If you are in a coma and you are not expected to make a full recovery, you know, what would you like to happen? You know, you can go as detailed as, would you want to have a trach? You know, would you want to have CPR performed? You know, that goes into the do not resuscitate order. Now, this do not resuscitate order, sometimes people often confuse it with the living will, and it's part of the living will. It's not the living will in its entirety. Now, the do not resuscitate order strictly only addresses cardiac resuscitation and respiratory resuscitation, meaning the chest compressions and the rescue breaths. Now, you can decide at any time that you would not like CPR performed on you if your heart naturally stops or you naturally stop breathing. Now, this is a form that can be executed at any healthcare provider, your doctor's offices, you know, whether they're your consulting physician, they're able to initiate that service for you. This document just indicates to medical emergency personnel, if they were to encounter you in an emergent situation, that they would not perform that life-sustaining procedure on you. Now, the DNR form or the DNRO should be signed by a physician. It needs to be dated, and it also requires your signature. Now, just because I signed this form, it doesn't mean that it's in effect forever. You can change your mind at any time, okay? Again, this is one of those documents that if you update it and you want to change it, it is best practice to destroy it. You know, I encourage seniors who live alone to put it somewhere where it's easily accessible. You know, you may not want to put it on your refrigerator because you don't want everybody who walks in your house to know your personal decisions, but you need to put it somewhere where it's easily accessible just in case someone has to call 911 for you and EMS has to come into your home. Now, this form is usually on a golden piece of paper in the state of Florida. If you want to identify it, it is best practice to notify your healthcare surrogate or the person that you've indicated in your wish 1, who you want to be over your healthcare decisions. If you're unable to speak for yourself, notify them of it. Let them know it's in existence. Where is it located in your home? If you initiate the document at one physician, it is best practice to provide your other physician offices with a copy of it as well, so they know. If you live in a community such as one of our senior communities where they have the independent living, they may have assisted living and the rehab center all located on the same property, usually they have some form of nursing staff that's present in all 3 sections. Notify that person of that document, and you can give them a copy of it just so that they are aware of it as well. I know some entities have the bracelet identifications. If you have one, make sure that you wear it. Make sure that it's up to date. If you no longer have this document and you have revoked it or destroyed it, remove the bracelet or remove any identifying factors that you have in your home that could indicate that you are a DNR. Now, the thing I like to clear up with the DNR order form, when you have it in place, it does not mean that individuals will not provide you with any form of medical assistance. It strictly only addresses the chest compressions and the rescue breaths. If they come to your house and you're in a medical emergency, they still can take an EKG, they still can check your blood sugar, they still can give you oxygen if you need it. They still can transfer you to the emergency room if you actually need more extensive emergency services. I know some individuals have been afraid to initiate this form because they feel that nothing will be done for them if they are in a medical emergency, and that's not true. It strictly only addresses the rescue breaths and the chest compressions. If you have a loved one who you're in the home with and they have this form and you ever have to call 911 or EMS ever has to come to your home, it's best practice to inform the individual who's arriving that your loved one does have a DNR in place and you can show them a copy of it just so they will be able to follow those wishes, when they enter your home, because, once they come in, everything moves fast. Everything is time related. Everything is time sensitive. So you want to inform them quickly before they do anything that's against the wishes of your loved one that's present. Okay. Now that's kind of wish 2 in a nutshell. Wish 2 is fast because it's more self-explanatory on the document where you actually are able to identify your wishes. What would you want to happen? What would you not want to happen? Is a discussion to have when you're with your loved ones. Anytime I think of wish 2, it makes me think of Terry Schiavo. For those of you who may remember that beautiful young lady who did not have any advance directives or 5 wishes in place. And, now her estranged husband and her parents then had to go through the legal battle of establishing who had the right to speak for her. The 5 wishes, once you put that in place, can erase all of that because you're speaking for yourself, even when you aren't able to. You're identifying who you want to speak for you. You're identifying what life-sustaining entities you would like to take place if you're ever in a medical emergency. Everything is there in black and white, so nobody has to guess what would you want or what would you not want, because you've indicated it yourself. Okay. Any questions about wish 2?
Yes. In Florida or, wherever else, if you're in the home with someone that has an advance directive, a DNR, are the folks that are there maybe caring for the person at that time legally obligated to present the DNR to rescue personnel?
Miss Laura, do you know if they're legally obligated? I would say they were morally obligated.
It's an ethical obligation. And also, and I just wanted to kind of dovetail something Ebony said about the location. Despite the perhaps lack of modesty about it, the refrigerator is the classic place where EMS is trained to go look for it. So I highly recommend, maybe not in everyday, if you are in an advanced illness situation and you want to protect the integrity of that document, I suggest that that's where you keep it so that you can ensure that EMS is able to address it.
Great question.
And going into this, sort of delving further into that, there are times when the medical system will resist what the healthcare surrogate is trying to put into place for the individual. And I highly encourage you to bring that to the ethics committee of a hospital or a medical institution, because it is not uncommon at all. You'd be surprised how often people are taken into the hospital, having had CPR done, and they're then hooked into the medical system and hooked up to machines that they never wanted to be. So that's important as well.
I had a when dealing with my mother, I had a very difficult conversation with her, this conversation, and she became unable to make her decisions, and we made them in accordance with what we had talked about. And a brand new spanking nurse that had just gotten her license came in and attempted to throw a huge wrench into the whole thing. So having it in writing is very important, because it'll circumvent a lot of pain, of pain.
You're absolutely right. And oftentimes individuals may believe that they have to execute these documents through like an attorney or a law office, or that they cost a lot of money. And this document is completely free. You know, we provided you with a copy of it, but it is available online. You can download it in various different versions, but it is completely free. You know, and sometimes that deters individuals from even having that difficult conversation, but you are absolutely right. It's best to have it written down.
In addition, you do not need an attorney to sign this. You need two witnesses. One must be a non-relative. They are not signing off on the content of it. They don't have to read it. They just have to witness you and recognize that you are the one who completed it. No attorney. You need an attorney when you get into financial matters. For healthcare matters, you strictly need witnesses, which is and by the way, this is portable in, I believe, 42 out of 50 states. And in the few states where it is not regarded, you get a form that converts it into something that is honored in all 50 states. If we're ready, we got a few things in chat.
Yeah, some questions.
We have a couple of things in the chat.
Sure.
Somebody who is listed only as iPad, sorry, we don't know your first name, suggested that a medication list accompany this document as well. So would be curious to your thoughts on that. And then Robin asked, let me pull up the question here. Robin asked if can the 5 wishes supplement a broader estate plan that has been already drawn up by an attorney?
Absolutely. Once again, the living will is for healthcare decisions. The other will is for who gets the brooch and the antique and the old antique clock. This would be a separate addendum to a full a full will that talks about the distribution of your assets. This is in addition to that. Does that answer your question?
The medication list accompany is great. So just think like it, again, if you're unable to speak for yourself, you know, they wouldn't have to run around and try to collect your medicine bottles. You know, updated medication list to accompany in an envelope is perfect.
There's something called a question. Yes, go ahead.
My understanding from ambulance people when they come in, if there's a DNR and you've called for an ambulance or medical attention at your there's a DNR.
I'm sorry, Catherine, you
lost the beginning. Maybe you want to put it in the chat. I'm so sorry.
I think she was going to ask if I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think she was going to ask if a DNR is present, will they not transport you to the emergency room? Is that what she's going to ask?
I can't hear it at all.
Okay.
Catherine, I would encourage you to type it in the chat if you can, because the audio on your end is intermittent. We had a question from Pastor Sean Ford about whether the document should be notarized, even if it's not required in the state. For example, here in the state of Florida, it's not required. Is it recommended?
Not in my experience. It really, these two witnesses is really, it's designed this way intentionally so that you don't have to have it notarized. The goal is to keep it as simple as possible.
I did what Ms. Lori said. When we've implemented it in long-term care settings on longest, it had the two witnesses. We accepted it and we recognized it. It did not have to be a notarized document.
All right.
I know that Catherine's question is, I'm sure, important. I hope that you are typing it into the chat and that we will be able to address it. But seeing no further questions at this point, let's move on to wish number 3.
You got it. That's where I come in. So 1 and 2 are basically the guts of a more commonly known living will. 3, 4, and 5 is the extra stuff. It's the fluff stuff. And I wanted to go back to something else. You know, this is a difficult conversation for most. Those of us who work at hospice, not so much. I love to talk about it. I'm no longer popular at cocktail parties and dinner parties, but I love to talk about the stuff, but most people don't. But it's important. You're doing yourself a service because you'll get the treatment that you want. And of equal importance, you're doing your family a huge service, which is maybe the way to bring up the conversation. I want to talk about this to you because I don't want to put you in a position of taking on an authority that's not yours. I was going to use the expression playing God, but I realized who my audience was. But the goal is just that, is not to have to make these hard decisions on your own. You're providing a guide. You're giving your family a manual for what should be done at a very, very important time of life. You know, I have some relatives that are superstitious. Just because you talk about death doesn't mean you're bringing it on. You know, and like Ebony said, in the movies, they play funky music and you know when a car accident is going to happen. In real life, we don't get those warning signs. These things take us by surprise. There is no planning for it. And also, I'm really a believer that this is one of those times in life when you have to put your big girl panties on and just do it. Yes, it is uncomfortable, but in my experience, discomfort is the cornerstone for growth. And a lot of good can come out of having this conversation, much more even than just what do you want your situation in a medical emergency to look like? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? What do you want the end of your life to look like? What kind of, and this gets into really wish 4 and 5, what kind of family reparations are there still to be made? I've been at many bedsides where there is just nothing medical keeping this person alive. And sure enough, they get a phone call from the estranged son. They may not be able to carry on a conversation, but you put the phone to their ear, and the person who they haven't spoken to in 5 years because they had a conflict says, I love you. And sure enough, in the matter of hours, that person then takes their last breath peacefully. How do you want to create a peaceful end to your life? Not just what do you want done and what poking and prodding do you want, but what else do you want? So going specifically into wish 3. Wish 3 is about pain management and comfort. And again, having been working at hospice as long as I have, and I was a social worker on the team for a long time, so I was really in the true grit of being at bedside for end of life many times. And I can't tell you how many times adult children have approached us when we have suggested that we are seeing a patient who is exhibiting facial grimacing, and we at hospice know that that's a sign of agitation and discomfort, and we recommend providing medication to ease that comfort. An adult child will say to us, oh, please don't give mom the morphine or the Tylenol or the Dilaudid because I want to be able to talk to her. Well, maybe you, maybe I as an individual have already decided that I'm going to forego being completely alert in the interest of being more comfortable. And that's why we as individuals, your loved ones, have an opportunity to put that in writing and put that into a conversation with your loved ones, so they don't have to make that decision. They don't have to argue with their other siblings about whether mom wanted to be comfortable or wanted to be able to chat with us. Another thing that's very important, and we'll get to that also when you talk about in Wish 5 and funeral arrangements. You know, again, we don't always get a warning. In a large percentage, Dr. Hawk used to say 90% of all deaths are actually following a period of terminal illness, and only 10% are due to some sudden or tragic event, however they happen. And when you get a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning from the hospital saying that your mother has been in a car accident, you don't get we don't not given the opportunity to use this organ, to use our brain to make decisions at that point. At that point in time, the only organ that operates is your heart. And that's where your feelings come in. And we're not always able to make logical decisions with our hearts, and with our brain not engaged. And they are decisions that have to be made on the spot. And how much better, how much more empowered are you to walk into a situation when you've been given information and had conversations ahead of time? And not just one conversation, many conversations. Because right now I'm 59 and relatively healthy. If God forbid at 67, I'm in a different place, my wishes may change. So we got to have those conversations again. And the more you're able to break those bonds, the taboo-ness of the discussion, the easier it is, the richer the information, and the richer the engagement within a family. So that's my spiel for wish number 3. Any questions or comments about that? Ebony, have anything to add? Anybody?
No, you said.
Okay, so wish 4 is, how do I want to be treated? You know, there are people who are more comfortable in a period of critical illness being in a hospital. Many, most, I would say, do not want to be in a hospital. Do you want to be at home with Fluffy and Rover lying in bed with you, your pets, or do you want to be in a hospital with blaring lights in an ICU? Yes, obviously I'm sharing that with my own personal bias, but that is my bias. Tell you another story. My husband's a motorcycle rider, and he had a very, very dear friend from the motorcycle club who was diagnosed with lung cancer, and things advanced very rapidly. He spent a month in the Neuroscience Institute section of Boca Regional, and had surgeries and extremely intense chemotherapy. And finally, the discussion of hospice came up. And he had a dog named Bailey, a little kind of a Yorkie-ish thing. And this dog went on all the motorcycle rides, came to all the motorcycle club meetings everywhere. Now, he was not encouraged to bring him into Boca Regional, but when he was transferred to our Boca Care Center, the hospice Boca Care Center on Palmetto Park Road, Bailey came and spent all of the rest of the time laying on his chest. That's a beautiful thing. How do you get to orchestrate that? So there are people that like to be touched. There are people that don't like to be touched. Does your family know which kind you are? Again, and those things can change as you get closer into situations, and hopefully you remain alert enough to continue to express those wishes. When my lips are dry, it drives me crazy. I get it from my mother. We both have a jar of Vaseline on our nightstand. I'm constantly putting chapstick or whatever I need to keep on my lips to keep them moist. Write that down. I want my lips to be moist. Make sure that that's put into place for me. Again, do you want to be touched? Do you not want to be touched? Do you want music? Do you want friends at your bedside, or are you a more private person and you want to be left alone? Do you want your children there? And again, going back to what I was saying before, as a mother, I'm a mother of 2 children. One of the most important things to me is seeing that my 2 children get along and are in unison. The more that you put into place in this document, the more that you have an opportunity for them to at least be in unison in how you get cared for. And again, it's an opportunity to figure out what kind of legacy you want to leave. What kind of communication do you want your family to have? And then you can get to go even farther into what do you want after your life? Now, I happen to be a big believer that up until the part we just got to, that's for the person who's still alive. The funeral is in large part for your loved ones to be able to mourn and come to terms with your passing. But those decisions can be made jointly so that they can honor your wishes and still get their needs met. Again, do you want photos? Do you want music? What do you want that to look like? I had a counseling client who said, we were discussing this very recently, and she said, well, I don't care about my funeral. That's my family's problem. They can do that after I die. Well, that's not really, that's kind of a self-centered approach. Why burden them with that? Why not discuss it and prearrange it? And quite frankly, from a fiduciary standpoint, you are far better served to make the arrangements ahead of time. I go back to my example about 2 o'clock in the morning, you get the phone call from the hospital that your parents were in a tragic car accident and have taken their last breath. You call up a funeral home to make arrangements. Again, you're doing it with your heart and not your head, and they'll charge you whatever they want, and there's no room to negotiate. And I don't mean to put a business ticket onto it, but it exists, and these things are negotiable if you do it ahead of time. I combined a whole lot of stuff all in one. And any questions, any comments? Just want to make sure we covered what I wanted to.
This part is phenomenal. We moved from North Carolina to Florida back in March, and one of the things we got in line was our living will and stuff like that, and we haven't had it signed. We haven't gone and had all that done yet, but I see this, and it just, it's fantastic. It contains so much that a sterile one that you would get off the internet or from a lawyer does not contain. And as a pastor, and having been at final moment, bedsides and things like that, for a family to know that you wanted your hand held, and for the person holding that hand, that is saying, I'm a part of this. I'm doing what they wanted, and I know for sure that's what they wanted, and it pulls you in as a part, and it helps that process of the grieving person to know that they were a comfort. What a great gift to give somebody. Some of these things that just lets people know, yeah, we're going to listen to Jonathan's music. None of us like it, but he loved it. So let's talk about how great it is. I might even put that in there. But those are neat things where people can connect and feel that connection at that final moment. So I really appreciate this. I really do.
That was beautiful.
Yes, absolutely spot on. When you guys know this better than I do, it being of the spiritual realm, a lot of us like to feel like we're in control, and ultimately illness and death and dying are sort of the ultimate test to that sensation of liking to be in control, because we have no control at all at that time. But we like to feel useful, those around the person who are ill, and like we have a task. And this gives you an opportunity to have a task. You can do what was put in writing to help the person. You said it more beautifully than I. You know, if you know that person's hand once held and you have the opportunity to do that, you're doing something. You're given something to do. Great comments and questions. Please chime in with more. Some of the questions some people ask is, can a husband and wife do their document together? Not recommended at all. Each person should have their own individual 5 wishes document with their own individual wishes on it. Going back to wish 2, another question that comes up is why do we list the same answers for the different scenarios? Well, for one thing, there are commonalities to all the different sort of multiple choice questions. And the really important one that the 5 wishes brings in is the doctor's opinion. What is the doctor's opinion about what the prognosis is in terms of recovery, and what kind of recovery, and how does that contribute to your decision about what you want done?
Yes. It's also best practice as well, once you've executed these documents, to still review them in regular intervals. Some people review them, you know, every birthday, or they review them when they're updating their benefits at work, because sometimes your opinion in your mind changes. Sometimes you have major life events that could change the information that you have listed. You know, you may have a spouse listed as, you know, your healthcare surrogate, and 5-10 years later, you may no longer be married to that individual. Or you may have 1 child listed, and here it is 10 years later, now you have 3 additional children. So once you put it in place, you know, still every now and then pick it up, review it. Review what you wrote, review what you selected, see if you still feel the same way. If you want to make any changes, that's the time you can initiate changes. It's not written in stone. It's a working document. You easily make changes as often, as frequently as you would like.
Anna put in the chat box, if a loved one has a copy of the 5 wishes and can't find the original, will the copy be valid? The answer is absolutely yes. Yes, and the only thing you have to do if this document is not what you want anymore is just destroy it and come up with a new one. But yes, the copy is absolutely valid.
Perfect. Thank you. Because I was thinking, what if one of my family members gave me the copy, and then at the time of need, we couldn't locate the original at their place, if my copy would work.
Right. That's why during wish 1, we said that it's best practice to give a copy actually to the person that you've selected. The person that you've selected to make the decisions for you, it's best practice to give them a copy for those, you know, occurrences that they can't put their hands on the original, as well as give a copy to like your physician's offices. If you are in an active senior living community, if they have some form of nursing services, provide them with a copy as well.
Thank you. Perfect.
You know, when my father died, he ended up dying in the hospital, but I was visiting with him the day before, and I certainly didn't know, at least not consciously know, that it was going to be the last day of his life. And I ended up staying at the hospital visiting him for far longer than sort of was normal. And we discussed everything from my marriage, details about his marriage to my mother who had predeceased him, finances. And when I said goodnight to him that night, it was a clean slate. There was absolutely nothing left unsaid. Some people don't like the word closure. I'm very comfortable with it. I felt like I had total and complete closure. And this document can't necessarily give it to you, but it can open up the door and open up the opportunity so that you can have closure. And it's a gift that you give your loved ones who you leave behind.
Any other questions?
Your comment about the EMS coming into the house, I worked for EMS some years ago, and for sure one of the things we did was look on refrigerators, but even more than that, inside the refrigerator there were special tubes that were made and everything for your medical directives and everything, because that's one place, and I verified it again on the internet. It's out there for anyone to see. That is a place that folks can go easily and would be more protected than a lot of appliances. I mean, do you look in someone's sock drawer? I mean, how would you decide? So that's sort of the central thing that pretty much everyone has one of those, and you can open it and enclose it in something so it's protected, and they can grab that and go.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Well, the only thing I see in the chat is a word of gratitude. And if there are no other questions, I want to offer my own word of gratitude. I can speak from personal, immediate experience. Over the last month, we've lost quite a number of people in the church, but also my grandmother passed away, and she and my grandfather had executed a will and a living will, and but this kind of document would have been that additional layer of, as you said, peace of mind, to know more specifically for her care and comfort what she would have wanted when she truly was unable to speak for herself. So I think this is a real gift. As a matter of fact, I know it's a real gift. I know that we now have here ambassadors for the 5 wishes in some of our pastors in the Broward Bahamas Conference, and in the church members who have joined us from the various churches within the conference. So Ebony and Lori and Diana and Anna, I want to thank you so much. Did I miss anybody else from Trustbridge? You all have been fantastic in helping us to make this presentation possible. I know that we have other opportunities that we are discussing to make other presentations available in partnership with you. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your insight and your wisdom about these important topics, and allowing us the chance to reflect together and consider them. This has been a real blessing.
I would add my thanks. I also would like to just ask those who are participating what your plans are now in terms of, you think you'll fill this out, but also are you apt to talk with other people about this? I'd just like to find out where people might be at.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, because yes, I've had the document for a few months, but I hadn't filled it out. I needed this conversation. I needed the details, and I needed to know what it meant actually in terms of the people involved. So I think it's been a great opportunity. I think it's been very clarifying for me. I will fill it out shortly, and I definitely will talk to others about it. Certainly my friends that are young like me, I think we all have to take care of this. I think it's selfish not to. I liked very much what Lori mentioned at some point about what you're giving to your family, the ease that you're helping them have during such a difficult moment. So thank you very much. I think it's been very important to hear you. Thank you.
You.
Yeah, I plan on getting the recording and handing out some of the booklets to our parishioners so that they can, one, hear the presentation for today, and then also have that opportunity, because this time didn't work for a lot of people who actually wanted to be on this call. And so I see it being a blessing to not just me and my family, but also to our congregation.
And Ebony and I both put our phone numbers, direct contact numbers in the chat. So please feel free to take them down and gather up any questions, and feel free to call us.
Yes.
And if anybody needs additional booklets, we have them at Zion, our website. I can put it in the chat, but the chat will disappear when the presentation is over. If you Google Zion Lutheran Deerfield Beach, our website comes up. It's zion-lutheran.org. You can email us or send us a message and say, I'd like you to save X number of booklets for me, and you can pick them up at our drive-up communion on Sundays at noon. Or if you give me a mailing address, I can put them in the mail to you as well. We just want to make them available to everybody that finds this helpful. So if you're watching this later on YouTube or our website, and that's the case for you, also send us a message. We will continue to have booklets available as long as we have them in stock. So please ask, and we're happy to send them to you or get them to you.
Well, thank you guys so much, Kurt. I wanted to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to put this together. Hopefully we'll be able to organize more of these presentations. We have plenty of topics that are very interesting and that we can share with you. So we'll continue working on that. And it's been such a pleasure to work with all of you. And we truly appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, and stay tuned, because we will be setting up some dates for, there's very timely presentations on self-care and emotional health during this pandemic. And as I told Anna, I needed those about 2 months ago. So we'll be scheduling further presentations on different but related topics from Trustbridge. So stay tuned. And we look forward to partnering with them again, and with all of the churches in the conference. Know that our prayers, our best wishes, and God's blessings go with you as you go about your days, and as you make these important decisions. Know that God is a part of it, and that we are here together for one another, and that all is a tremendous blessing. So we are the church together for the sake of the entire world. And thank you again to our presenters, to Lori and to Ebony, and wish you all well as you go from here, and until we see each other again. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Likewise, stay safe and healthy, everybody.
All right, take care.